Okay, maybe just to summarise where we are so far. I mean, I absolutely get that you've got the claim that you have, and I've heard from you how distressing this whole thing has been, and you've had the opportunity to say that to the other room as well. And I appreciate that this is the opportunity to try and get the very best deal you can, frankly, Mary and Michael. This is the whole point of today. What I need to discuss with you now is how you will measure or benchmark any proposals that are put forward by the others. I mean, we all want things, and you can want all sorts of things in life, but the measurement is objectively, well, if you can't reach an agreement, what will happen? So what I want to do now is spend a bit of time chatting with you about, and we involve Michael in this too, what will happen, Miriam, if you don't manage to come to an arrangement today with the other room that works for you both. Mm-hmm. I think that then gives you an objective standard, as it were, against which to assess what other offers they may make. You don't have to accept them, but at least you then know what will happen if you don't reach agreement. Okay. So what I'm going to do is do some work on the flip chart, if I may, just to illustrate the point. I'm not prescribing anything or saying this is how it must be. In fact, Michael, you must take time with Miriam after I've gone to just chat it all through.
Of course, yeah.
But it's a tool to help. Okay, can I do that for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
Sure.
I'm just coming around to this side of the table because I'm left-handed, and it's easier that I can use flip charts in this way. One other thing I'd like to do is just to pose the question: what happens if? And the if, Miriam and Michael, is you don't do a deal today. In other words, what's alternative now? In the jargon, this is called, in the Harvard jargon, that now the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. We can also talk about, we may need to talk about the worst alternative. In other words, if you don't settle today or reach an agreement today, you go to, well, it's the court, I think, what's the best that's likely to happen, and what's the worst that's likely to happen. And it gives you two measures, if you like, of alternatives. So let's first ask ourselves this: on a good day, Michael, how much is Miriam likely to recover if the court finds in her favour?
I would suspect around about 200,000.
200, okay, we'll put 200 up. So I'll call that the principal sum, legal jargon. Okay. Now, how much is it going to cost? Let me ask the first time, how long is it going to take to get to the point where 200,000 would be forthcoming? The court timetables and so forth.
Court timetables, yes. So this would be court, I suppose, a tribunal. I would think 8 to 10 months from the closing.
Well, what we'll do is we'll put this 8 to 10 months down as a kind of an estimate of the time. So that would take us, or take you, towards the end of 215 on a good day.
Yep.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's just the nature of the system, Miriam, and that's just my job is to make sure that all these factors are in front of you. How long, roughly, Michael?
In court?
Yeah, in court. How many days?
Well, there's Miriam's colleagues we need to have evidence from. The other side, I know, have got three at least. That 5 days plus.
5 days plus.
Yes.
So if I put 6 days down, is that
6
very
days, yeah.
conservative, or is that a rough? So let's just put 6 days.
Yeah.
Can you give me a broad idea, Miriam, a broad idea of roughly how much that would cost?
Yes. Let me see. Well, actually, it's a bit more difficult.
Even to near as £10,000. I know lots of money involved, but that's the nature again of
I would think upwards of 35,000, 40 perhaps.
So let's put, and again we'll use the green pen because it separates that. So it could cost, in terms of what we would call expenses or costs, about 40,000.
Yeah.
Now, if Miriam is successful, how much of that would you get back? Because I think you're entitled to recover the
Yes,
expenses from the other side at the moment, at least.
Yeah. Round about 60%. A good chunk. You get most of it back. So
60% of 30 is about 24. Is that right?
Yeah.
So that would be 16 that Mary would have to meet herself.
Indeed.
If that calculation is correct, there's a 16 difference. So that would take it down to 184. All right. So on a good day, assuming success, taking off the cost that can't be recovered from the other side, 184,000.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And what we'll do now is we'll just do the same exercise. That was the that, wasn't it? I wish I hadn't written this up here. So what I'll do is I'll do the WATNA, and we'll just do it on this sheet here, even though it's slightly out of kilter. Put it in red. Okay. So on a bad day, and people have bad days, Miriam, presumably the recovery would be 0. Miriam would still have the 40,000 of costs which you'd have to pay. Yeah,
Indeed.
could we assume that the other side would also have similar amount of costs?
I would suspect they might, yes.
And the 60% would apply there as well? I think that's right, isn't it? So
Yeah.
again, the 24 that you would have got back, Miriam, you'd also need to pay for the other, just on a very, very broad brush, pay the other side. So on a bad day in court, that is minus 64. So there's quite a range there, isn't there, between the high point of 184 and the low point of 64. These are very broad, Miriam, but just to illustrate the point. So I suppose one of the things we need to ask ourselves now is, how likely is it within a range, or what are the probabilities for you having success within that range? 184 looks attractive, minus 64 I suspect is not awfully attractive. And one of the things we can do is what we call a decision tree. So that's just very, very quickly, this is a very amateurish approach by me to risk analysis, and Michael, again, you can talk this through, but we know that Miriam has to establish, well, actually, first of all, that there was a contract at all,
Okay.
and then that the contract was breached, again using legal language, that there was something happened that meant that Miriam didn't get what she was entitled to and never gives her a claim, and she needs to then show that that breach caused her loss. Now you've got all that in the court papers, I know, and you'll discuss it with Miriam, I'm sure. Very broadly, Michael, what would you say the percentage possibility or prospect of establishing that there was actually a contract
Okay. Well, we're
in the first place?
confident with this, and indeed I think there's an 80% chance that we could establish that within court. So we're very confident with this.
80%. Okay. Because often people are asked, what's the prospect of success? And they say, well, 80%, 70%. But what we're doing is breaking it down a bit.
Okay.
Now, you've got to show that the others did something wrong and breached the contract. What, again, broadly speaking,
Yeah.
what do you think the percentage would be?
Yeah. Again, it will swing in our favour, but let's go as a base figure 60%.
Okay.
I mean,
You can change these figures at
Yes,
any
I
time.
think
These are
it's-
not prescriptive, they're just an illustration. And then, let's say actually your best figure here was, as we saw over here, 200, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So this is what I would say. So what are the percentage prospects of showing that the whole 200 could be recovered? I think you've got some loss in the past, you've also got some projected loss in the future.
That's true.
What would you say?
Again, yeah, I think we're confident it'll be 70%.
70?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so overall, as you say, on balance in each of these it falls towards you.
Yes. Quite
However,
fair.
what the theories do with this to show the real probability of success for Miriam is to multiply these up, because you've got to establish each of them.
Sure.
So my maths isn't great, but if I do 8 times 6, I get 48, that's nearly 50. I multiply that by 7, I get just under 35%, don't it? So let's just say 33, 34%. So what this is showing is that Miriam, on this analysis, and you can rubbish it, throw it in the bin, there is a 33, 34% chance. That's 80 times 60 times 70, taking the risk profile for each of these component parts. 33, 34% chance of you achieving the 200. And that's where it's important then to look at the continuum, as it were, between you had the 184 and you had the minus 64, and the kind of a line, if you like, there. And I've done that in red, so we'll just do it in green, make it neutral. And what this analysis is saying is there's about a third of a prospect of getting up here. And of course, you can continue analysis for all sorts of figures. So this is just to look at risk, because for you, this is slightly asymmetrical. You're claiming, so in order to get what you need you've got to put all these bricks in place so you then get the final outcome. Whereas the others, the nature of the adversarial process, often just have to pull one brick out for the facade to fall away. And so what your risk analysis is showing you is that you've got to build all of these up to make this work. Now that's just a very, very simple and straightforward analysis, mostly of the money side, I suppose. Do one very, very quick final flip chart work. Michael has been giving you his percentage chances of being successful in the facts and the law. We've also been talking about the costs, and these are the direct costs in money terms of going to court and winning or losing. Also, in this situation, we'll often talk about indirect costs, if I just spell it properly, indirect, and that might include loss of opportunity. So for you as a business person, while you are enmeshed in this legal case, what might you otherwise have been doing with your time? There's also, of course, when you get into a situation like this, the whole risk of publicity and reputation. Now I know that very often other contractors won't deal with subcontractors when there's an outstanding court case. And I don't know about you, but many people nowadays say to me that the whole stress and anxiety and the morale loss are factors to take into account. So I put all of that in because these are all elements or features in your problem solving approach or look. Now I will leave you to ponder all of this, but my duty as mediator is simply to put these in front of you, to have you think about them. It's again up to you what you make of them, whether you take them and use them or not, because ultimately you make decisions on advice from Michael. But I hope that's helpful. I'm going to go next door now and probably do a kind of similar exercise, although it'll be different because of the asymmetry. I'll leave you with that. Okay?
Thank you.